And welcome in to This Week in Arsenal, episode 25. It is August 13th, 2023. I'm Sham. You can follow me on Twitter at Shamsdale. Follow the pod. You can find us on Twitter at This Week Arsenal. You can find us on YouTube. It's still the LT Arsenal YouTube channel, but we're working on a rebrand of that and getting all that set up. Sash is not here with us today. His laptop has decided to move to a farm upstate, so he's working on getting a new laptop. Dealing with Apple. He is none too pleased based on our WhatsApp chats, but we move. He'll be back later on this week. But with me is, we always promise you guys we're going to have nothing but the most illustrious guests on this pod. And keeping with that promise, we're both men of our word. Keeping with that promise, we have the one, the only Curran from Ball Over Passion. Curran, thank you so much for being on here, my friend. How are you doing?
Not a problem. I mean, I'm a bit better knowing that Sasha's in pain, but there's always it's always nice to see your face and nice to talk to you. So, looking forward to this. We've had a bit of a discussion before about kind of what we're going to get into, so it's not going to be too free form. But yeah, looking forward to having this discussion, and it's going to be interesting to talk about a lot of things. 'Cause I was at the game yesterday, and the chaos that ensued yesterday was fun at times, but yeah,
We
a
should
lot
talk
to
about
talk to.
that. Yeah.
A lot to talk about. So let's just get into it.
Yeah. I mean, tell you what, do we want to jump into that first? I mean, let's,
Yeah, sure.
yeah, I mean, we do have some subjects that we want to get to, but I don't mind being a little loosey goosey. Yeah. I mean, what was the experience like getting into the stadium? And, if you can you kind of give the viewers and the listeners kind of a rundown of what exactly went wrong?
All right, no worries. So I got to at the Emirates just before 11:30. The game was obviously started to was penned to start at 12:30. At that point, I met with a couple of friends and I thought we all go our separate ways. Um, the way the Emirates is structured, there are turnstiles from A to S.
Hmm.
I was penned into going to turnstile P, and when you enter the Emirates, there's multiple entrances. I went to the entrance nearest to the Arsenal station, which is basically the Tony Adams statue, Wenger statue side of the stadium,
Hmm.
um, where Gate A is, and so there were signs. There was a sign by just as you entered saying. There was like the turnstiles were written a certain amount go this direction, the other go this direction, and I went in the direction I was saying. And the thing is, the problem is there's a part of the stadium where it kind of narrows the gap between the wall and the boundary. It kind of narrows a bit, whereas on the other side it's pretty free form because there's a lot of space. So between, I would say, turnstile, I would say D/E, maybe C as well. It kind of narrows in a bit, and everyone was like almost crushed. Not crushed. Crush is a harsh word. Like it was really crammed in there. So people were trying to move to get to, because if you go from CBA, then it would
Hmm.
be S, and then going on that way. So I went in that direction because P is closer than going all the way around. I wish I'd gone all the way around because that place is it was no issues. Uh, all the pictures you're seeing of people kind of crammed in was in that small section. Once you got through, it was fine, and then obviously there were the ticketing issues in terms of getting into the stadium. But that was just waiting. That's not that big a deal. It was the cramping that I think people were a bit annoyed about, because
Yeah.
there was a lot of people with not a lot of space. So everyone was like, "Move, move," and you couldn't really move, and that kind of leads to a bit of chaos. But yeah, all in all, it was annoying. I'm just glad they postponed the game. Um, I ex- I was at the Emirates Cup. There was none of these problems there. I think there's going to be issues in terms of these kinds of things when you switch from cards and paper to digital ticketing, and clearly the issue. The issue I had was there wasn't a lot of of thought into how to get people in, because people weren't used to everyone. Basically, when you know when you go to a stadium, you put your ticket underneath the scanner,
Yeah.
and it just scans. But with the digital passes, you put like you would a credit card, like on your phone, you just use it like that. And there were people older that didn't really understand that, and they were getting confused, and it was holding up the line, etc. I think there should have been a bit more communication about how to actually get into the into the stadium, and that would
Yeah.
have saved a lot of time. But I'm not going to go until, I would say, United, maybe Spurs. I'm gonna let it have a couple of weeks, let them get used to it, and maybe there'll be some teething problems, and then it will start to move well. I don't understand why they've done this. They issue membership cards. I think that's a fine solution. I think people, they just want to stop people from how can I say it? They want people to stop sharing memberships,
Hmm.
and I think they want to try and put, if it's on your phone, then you can't really transfer it to someone else unless you send them the whole PDF, and that's a different thing. And then
Yeah.
you can get memberships mixed up. I think they want to make that a bit harder. They want people to actually uh, use the membership they own, and I don't understand why, if you're paying for the ticket and someone else goes for you, it's still a ticket. You're still getting a person in the seat, and they're still paying for the ticket. So I don't really get that. But it is what it is. It wasn't like anything to be overly worried about. It was just very annoying, and they handled it well, because they delayed the game, and everyone got in fairly well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I remember, a bunch of us were messaging in, the group chat that we have,
Yeah,
and I the game was supposed to start 7:30 my time, so I woke up early and I was sitting there with my coffee, and
yeah,
then I
I
turned on
remember.
NBC, and I heard, what's her name? I'm forgetting her name right now. Not It's not important, but I heard one
Mm.
of the main hosts for the NBC football broadcast saying, if you've gotten up early, guess what? You could have slept in another 30
Yeah,
minutes.
yeah, yeah. I know I had a
Yeah.
couple of my American friends got up, and I was sending pictures into various group chats saying it's a bit chaotic right now, and they were like, "I could have slept. I could have just stayed in for a bit longer. It wasn't that deep." And you know what it is? It's early kickoff vibes. Like, there weren't a lot of like my mates there in the first place, and it was my birthday on Friday, so I was pretty hungover, and I had to get up for this game. And then the ticket stuff, and you're just like, come on, man, I've got a headache. I need to get inside. I to get me something to drink. For Dan out there, if you are listening, I'll get a Prime. Um, then because that'll piss him off. I'll get a Prime, and then hopefully that'll sell some of the hangover vibes. But yeah, it was just annoying, and I think there's a lot of stuff going on with ticketing this year. The new ballot system. I mean, we could go into a whole different podcast about that. That's a
Yeah.
long topic, but um, there's a lot. I think this year, in terms of like the atmosphere and ticketing, I think is going to be a big sort of talking point throughout the season, because a lot of people are struggling with the ballots, uh, getting tickets, etc. So something like 10% of ballots are successful. So it's annoying, but we're going to have to figure out how to navigate it, because it'll be. I think the atmosphere will still be there. I think it was a bit off yesterday, but it took a couple of games last season. I think by the time we got to Leicester last season, then it started to pick up. But everyone's a bit, I think, lethargic right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, like, whenever you shift to, a fully digital way of doing things, there's always, a group of,
Mm.
not to generalize it, but the olds, right? And also, some people who
Yeah,
aren't super tech savvy, who, always struggle with that kind of thing and don't know what button to press. And, there's going to be some growing pains associated with that. But, glad to hear that it's not a crisis per se. So, but we'll get into what actually happened with the game, and I
yeah,
think the first thing to talk about there is starting lineup came out, and up until that point, I think Gabriel had started in 73 consecutive Premier League matches,
yeah,
and then he didn't start in this one. Was on the bench. Back four was Party, White, Saliba, and Timber to start.
yeah.
And you know, there was obviously a lot of confusion and some opinions on Gabriel being held out of the starting lineup, and also some horrific takes from not from like, Twitter. I'll expect it, but like they were asking like Tim Howard like what he thought the reasoning was for benching Gabriel, and he's like, "Oh
Mm.
well, you need like a better one-on-one defender." When you're going up against Brennan Johnson, and I was just like, you don't watch Gabriel
I'm just
enough,
going to
do you?
say one thing, and this is emblematic of all of football dialogue. Just because you
Sure.
play football at an elite level doesn't mean you are an elite football mind. I think
No.
there's a lot of players that are a lot of fans that are extremely like hyperbolic about how good football, especially footballers in the past. Like if you punditry was from footballers in the last, I would say 5 to 10 years. We're talking a different ball game, but we're talking 2000s football. You guys didn't watch 2000s football, and if you did, you'd know not to take Rio Ferdinand seriously, not to take Gary Neville seriously, not to take Tim
Yeah.
Howard seriously, because it's a completely different game. And the IQ of footballers back in that day was a completely different IQ in a completely different situation, completely different football. I dare anyone to go back and watch even a Chelsea United game from 2004, 2005, 2003, and tell me, should you take this opinion seriously? Because it's not the same game. It's not even
Yeah.
close to the same game. So in terms of Gabriel being benched, this is I love Mikel, but he will be the death of me. I had Gabriel in FPL. I thought that would be the most guaranteed. Like once the whole is he in the squad? Is he not in the squad? Thing was resolved. I thought, all right, cool. It was either going to be Gabriel or Saliba, and I thought he'll play Gabriel, and I'll put Gabriel in, and it would be okay if he benched him and didn't bring him on. He brought him on like 70th minute. He got me 1 point. It's just stupid. Just leave him on the bench. And I'm joking, but the main thing is, and I said it on Twitter as well. The main reason why we suffered last season is because we didn't rotate at all.
Yeah.
We had the same 11 week in week out, and just didn't work. Get used to this, people. It's not like I said. Like people in the entire preseason season were going, "Oh, but if Havertz starts, this won't happen. If Eddie starts, this won't happen. If this happens, that happens. Trossard, what about Trossard? He's not going to get any minutes." The aim and that the goal needs to be for about 17 to 18 players in the squad to play about 20 to 25 games worth of minutes. That needs to be the goal. Because if you have that, everyone's fit, everyone's healthy, and you actually can sustain a title challenge for 38 games instead of doing it for 34 or 30 games and then falling off because of one injury. And the other thing is if you get the injury, you have other solutions. Like we saw with Gabriel out, we played, I would say, a 4-3-3 evolving into a 3-4-3. And then from there, you didn't need Gabriel. Gabriel, as you mentioned, 73 games consecutively, and he didn't was not needed until things got a bit tetchy and we needed a bit more security at the back. He was the holding. Like we brought
Yeah.
him on to close out the game of from that top four season we had 21-22. So yeah, I genuinely think that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. And people don't realize we used to have a drop off from Tierney to Nuno Tavares. Now we're going from Zinchenko to Timber and Zinchenko and Timber to Kivior. Like that's what we have now.
Yeah.
And the two main positions we've struggled with in Mikel Arteta's time is defensive midfield, left back, and maybe right wing at times when Saka's been has been a bit fatigued or off it at times. And now we have, I would say, great depth at defensive midfield, great depth at left back, and a feasible right wing depth with Nelson, Trossard, Gabriel Jesus, Fabio Vieira, Martinelli, Smith Rowe. They can all play right wing. So um, uh, we're in a different ball game now. We need to start looking at different solutions. I would hope that Mikel tries to find solutions within the season for right wing. I think that's the next evolution.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is encouraging. And I think also maybe Havertz might potentially be an
Yeah,
option at right
of course
wing.
he is. Yeah,
Probably.
yeah.
Yeah. And so it is encouraging that at least we can sit here and come up with guys who can feasibly play at right wing to, a decent standard in the event that Saka is unavailable or we
Mhm.
just need to rest him. But
We
yeah,
didn't
I
even
mean
mention
that.
Amario. Amario as well is the actual right
Yeah,
wing, an actual right winger. So
and he'll probably get some minutes at least like in the
mhm,
cup or something.
Carabao or something. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's I think that's kind of part of a larger point, which is that we actually have a squad now,
Mm,
whereas before, the last few seasons with Mikel, he definitely has seemed to feel like there are 11, 12 guys he can actually rely on, and he just keeps rolling them out, and that's kind of why our title challenge fell off at the end because it was the
mm.
same guys. It was Ramsdale, White, Saliba, Gabriel, Zinchenko, Party, Odegaard, Xhaka, Saka, Jesus, Martinelli, rinse and repeat. If someone goes
Yep.
down, just throw someone else in. But, it was the same
That
guys
that
over
last
and
sentence
over and
is so
over.
important. That last sentence you just said is so important. If someone goes out, just throw someone else in. You can't do
Yeah.
that. You need to be
Yeah.
able to have the person adapt to that specific role that you've got and have them actually embedded for a couple of games before you go, all right, I need you. I need you today to really set down this role because you can't just if you have people that are adjusted to the role and actually know what they're doing in that position, then you have a real that's real depth. Just having the player on the bench isn't depth. It's just a body. You know what I mean? You need
Yeah.
someone that actually can do the role that you set out for them.
Well, and that's I think a better example than last season was the 21-22 season when we were competing to get in a fourth place against Spurs essentially, and people started going down, and we were throwing in Holding, we were throwing in El Nani and Tavares and Eddie, right? And like they took a while to actually be decent because they got
Mm,
thrown in cold. They had not touched the pitch all season, and then Lacazette got injured, or Party got injured, or Tierney got injured, and then all of a sudden Tavares and El Nani and Nketiah get shoved into the deep end and say, okay, well
yeah.
you have to be good now, so figure it out. So now this season we're going to have guys cycling in and playing those minutes and at least being prepared for when the time comes when they actually might have to be relied on. And party at right back, that's something that we might have to go back to later in the season. And so now, he's a little bit more embedded and kind of acclimated
He
to
knows what to
that,
do.
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it was just really nice to see everybody, well, not everybody, but it's nice to see players like rotated in like that. And obviously in Kedia, he's definitely someone who needs a run of games before he actually gets into top form. So that was another encouraging sight for him. So with the Gabrielle benching for yesterday, I thought it was interesting. I do understand, I guess, the most likely reasoning, which is he just wanted four of the best progressors in the team in the back, which, I think are Party and White and Saliba and Timber. Although I do think Gabriel's a solid progressor, but, obviously not as good as those four. So, when we're going up against a mid low block team like Nottingham Forest, you're going to try to hit us on the counter, but, mainly are sitting in their box and you want four guys who can get the ball into the final third as quickly as possible.
I
Yeah.
don't think progressor is the right. I understand what you're getting at. I understand that
Mhm.
you want to make sure that the progression from I would say the center line into the final third is a bit more secure. I personally think that it's more to do with the angles in the back line. I think that if you're going to have Party at right back, um,
Mhm.
you need to have a left centre. If Kivior was fit or Kivior was ready, I think Kivior would be in the left centre back role, and Saliba would be in the right centre back role. I think that Kivior has been more adjusted to the left back role in preseason. I don't know if he's ready for that left centre back role yet, because I don't think we've seen it in preseason. I think that it's the angles of the back line because we both know that Mikel likes to have a left footer and a right footer, but
Yeah.
I think that maybe if Kivior, I think when Kivior is ready, I think that will be his role. That left centre back, central centre back in build up, that will be the kind of role he does. I also think that he liked having Timber I think he wants to get Timber used to being in midfield roles, basically. And if he's going to have Partey at right back, I think Timber at left back was the obvious solution because we didn't have Zinchenko. I think Kivior, I think in the final form, this setup, I think the back line personally would be Partey, then White, Kivior, and Timber. I think that would be in this sort of format just because of the angles. I think that he put Saliba in there because he needed Saliba to for just the stability. I think he's our
Mhm.
best, I think, defender. So
Yeah.
he needed them there for the stability. But I think in his mind, I think he wants Kivior there. I think that's where his role will be, that central centre back, or even Tomiyasu, because Tomiyasu is quite ambidextrous himself. So having him there in that left central centre back role, I think is going to be something. That role is going to be very crucial going forward because, for example, I think in the first 11, I think we'll have Timber in the Partey role, and
Mhm.
then Zinchenko in the Timber role from yesterday. I think that would be the dynamics, and then have Gabriel and Saliba. I think the thinking what he wanted to do was to make sure that he wants to get Timber in midfield as much as possible this season. I think that's going to be the main thing. George has often said that he's going to try and make him the Caicedo. I tend to agree with that. I think that's going to be his role, that sort of fall back into midfield type role. So I think the thinking to yesterday was in terms of I think the best way to sum up yesterday is practice for the future. I think that's the way to look at it, because a lot of these roles yesterday will be roles that we'll be using with this squad going forward. So Timber need to get him used to midfield. Partey needs to get him used to right back. Saliba, we need him to cover both positions if needed, and White is a good right centre back. So I think that's the best way to sum it up.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And how do you? Well, like I guess I'll ask it like this.
Mm.
So we benched Gabriel and we picked Nketiah at center forward instead of
Hmm.
maybe Trossard or Havertz, and we rolled out Party at right back. And the game played out as we all saw. We won 2-1, had a couple great goals in the first half. Were a little less dominant in the second half. Conceded that goal on transition. Lost the XG battle, according to some people, on against Forest. But all in all, what were your impressions coming out of that game? I mean, I guess on a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you compared to some of the takes that we've seen online?
Apparently, we're getting relegated. I don't know what's going on. I'm just at a loss right now. I don't understand how you can have literally one moment in transition define an entire performance. I don't understand. I don't think I'll ever understand it. The way that
Mhm.
people, I don't think people watch football matches genuinely. I think that people watch football on the timeline and define the narratives off that. I don't think people will actually watch football matches, because it was quite a clear plan in the second half that we wanted to try and control the game,
Yeah.
and I think we're not used to that. I think the best way, and this is the thing, it's a consistent theme throughout this game. This game was like an extended preseason game almost. We
Yeah.
constantly wanted to uh, try and improve our ability in certain areas. It wasn't as much about, okay, we need to try and take this game extremely seriously. We need to make sure that we thrash it out, because the thing is, if we went full pace for 90 minutes, that's a 4-5 nil. But
Yeah.
we wanted to try and control the game. I think that's the main thing this season. We're going to try and see how we can actually control and drive games and be dominant for games. Because if you remember early Mikel was 3-4-3, try and hit people on the counter, and then we moved
Yeah.
to 4-2-3-1 and trying to get hold of games and try to move in specific rotations and rely on specific players in the team. Then 4-3-3, and now this 3-4-3-3, 3-4-3. Um, this is the first time I genuinely think that we have a team that is built for 70% possession. I think that's I don't think we've had that under Mikel. I think we've looked to try and get a hold of games, get be as dominant as we can. But this is the first time we could genuinely say this is a team that should be getting most of the ball and hanging onto the ball and really making sure that teams have to do something to try and break us instead of having to try and break teams ourselves. So it's a different dynamic from going from being a good team to being a great team, and I think that's what we're struggling with as fans right now, because there's going to be times when we try to just do nothing and just let the game peter out, and there's going to be moments where we're not used to it, and that goal like yesterday happens. But we were 2-0 up, and I don't think there was at any point yesterday where I thought, okay, they're getting back in it here. Even when after the goal went in, I didn't think, okay, it's all going to shit now. It's all done. We might get they might skip a draw. Genuinely nothing changed after the goal. Like, they weren't piling on. It wasn't like us against Bournemouth, it wasn't like they were going ham and we were just penned in. They had maybe, I think, 2 good opportunities um, to really, really punish us. But there was nothing really that I was like, okay, we need to tighten up here. That's just me anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, there was you said 70% possession. I think there was I saw this. There was a point in the match, I think it was early in the second half when we
Mm,
had 86% possession.
mhm.
We were thoroughly dominating the game, and there's that one Crab Stats momentum chart that's going around
The field
that
tilt one.
basically,
Yeah.
yeah, keep on hitting the microphone. Yeah, like the entire top half of the graph representing us is all red. Forest have that just one little bit of black where they hit us on the counter and scored, and that was it.
Mm,
They didn't do anything. So I think a lot of people will see the score line and will think it was close, and will see the XG and kind of interpret that incorrectly and think that that was the story of the game. And I think a lot of people just let their emotions inform the story of the game, right? When in those minutes after
mm,
Forrest scored, where you're just kind of sitting there thinking, okay, well, it's 2-1 now. They have the momentum. They have the urgency behind them, and people suddenly think that's what happened the rest of the game. But what really happened is we got hit on the counter, and then we kind of I think we got a little bit more serious about trying to control the game. But after that, we were creating chances. I remember that one moment of interplay. I think it was between Havertz and Saka, and I want to say Martinelli as well, or
mhm.
maybe Trossard. But Havertz is on the left wing, and they're playing a couple diagonal balls, and all of a sudden Saka's inches away from tucking home a third. So we were right back at it after the Forest game. But yeah, I mean, I think I think people are still, and I think this is kind of an inherent condition among Arsenal fans. People are just still nervous about this team, and maybe maybe refuse to let themselves see us as a team that's capable of dominating games, that's capable of controlling possession, and more often than not knows what it's doing. Um, but yeah, I felt like we were pretty much in control for most of the match. It's just that
Yeah.
one goal is really, really
It
being
it's defined a performance, I
yeah.
feel.
Sorry?
I think it's defined a performance. I think it's
Yeah.
that's the takeaway, because that's what people have really set onto at this moment in time. I think
Yeah.
maybe if people actually rewatch the game, or just take a second to really think about what happened, they'll understand. But
Yeah.
um, you mentioned XG. Like, I just want to quickly just touch on that, because the
Yeah.
XG was 0.79 to 1.25 to Nottingham Forest, right? We won 2-1. What is XG? XG, right? XG is the probability that someone scores from that shot or that chance that's been created, right? So XG is literally just a measure of how good your finishers are. That's it. It's not a metric of control, or a metric of possession, or even performance. All it is literally how many goals did your strikers or midfielders, whoever, scored, versus what should they have scored on an average day. That's literally it. And I think people have gotten into this mode where XG defines a performance. It doesn't. It's literally a metric to define how good your finishes are. That's it. So
Yeah.
in fact, overperforming XG means that your strikers had a good day. Bukayo Saka's shot was a 0.04 XG chance. That should say it all. It means that that shot was just that good. Um, we'll get into to Eddie's goal because I know you wanted to talk about Eddie's goal. We mentioned it off stream, but that Bukayo Saka goal shows that, and the XG accumulated from that whole move and the whole performance leading to that goal is defined by 0.04 XG, right?
Mhm.
So it discounts. So saying that it was just we were crap because we overperformed XG disregards everything leading up to that goal as well as the finish itself. So yeah, mention XG. XG is fine to look at as a stat in isolation to see how well your attack is doing is
Mhm.
versus what it should be doing. That's fine, but don't use it as a performance metric because it's just one stat.
Yeah.
And this is the problem I have with these stats, guys. And I don't I don't have any issues with stats in general. It's just that when you just use stats or when you just use one stat, it's just not going to work because everything in football is multifactorial, whether it be defense, attack, build up, finishing, defending, anything. There's never one reason for it. There's never one solution or one problem. So I just think that going into these stats and just being so rigid on even something like the big chances missed or big chances created. What is a big define to me a big chance? Do you know what a big chance is? I genuinely don't know because on one like it's a very subjective metric. In one, for example, Opta versus StatsBomb, they could have two completely different definitions for a big chance. And then if you mix these two, like FootMob or SofaScore or whatever,
Yeah.
BCC or BCM, you're just it gets too convoluted. And then how do you define which is right, which is wrong? Is this Opta data right? Is the StatsBomb data right? Is SofaScore, FootMob, whatever? Which big chance is a big chance? So
Yeah.
it's very you watch games, don't watch Twitter and watch football. That would be my suggestion because then you get a much more clearer perspective and form your own opinions that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And also on the XG point, it's I find that it's a better using XG to define how even your attack did in a game
Mm,
it's never the full picture. That XG has always kind of been something that is more informative over time anyway. But in addition to that, like you said, watch the game. Some people I think just see the XG and then assume Forest were better than us. But what factors into Forest's XG? It was the Brennan Johnson chance that he missed earlier in the match, and then it was the Awani goal,
yeah,
and that's it, right?
pretty much.
And the
Yeah,
reason that our XG was so low is because we just weren't we weren't getting the final balls right. Either we created a lot of cutbacks. The one I remember in particular was the white cutback that just
yeah.
flashed
I've
across
mentioned it
goal.
I've mentioned it in the group like 6 times already.
Yeah,
It's been pissing me off all day because it was
yeah,
right in front of me. It was literally right in front. I could see the ball cross over the penalty line and Deck on it with his hands on his head. Like I should be there. I need to be there.
yeah.
But yeah, like for example, how many just Declan himself? Like he had quite a few shots himself.
I think he
I
had three
swear
on target.
they had three on target. That's what I'm saying. Like, and the thing is, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I'm 100% sure that they did not have more than I would say 5 shots on target all game. And
Yeah.
Deck had three by himself. Yet we're criticizing our chance creation mechanics. I don't understand what the thought process is here. So
Mhm.
uh, it's interesting to me.
Yeah, and again, like if I think you had a really good point where you said before, don't watch Twitter, watch the game. And I think a lot of people were just kind of checking into the timeline and seeing the stats that people like kind of throw out there and
Mm,
kind of taking that to, to be the full picture of the match. But again, I think we are in control. It's just that when you play the way that we do, and you have that high line, and you put all these players in the final third, and you try to dominate the game, and basically leave your half the pitch open because you're trying to compress the field. It's high risk if you lose the ball in a bad situation. If they manage to get the ball over the top and they have someone quick enough to beat one of your center backs to it, they're in on goal. But we're good enough that we play that system, and Forrest had what, two, maybe three decent opportunities. And they're never going to take all of those, except on a day where we're really getting punished to the maximum for making those mistakes. Yeah, I think people just don't really take into context the game itself, and also just kind of general philosophy with which we play.
yeah. Like the other thing I'll say on just the stats point is, like, for example, I mean, look, we had 78% possession. We had
Mhm.
15 shots and we had 7 on target. They had 6 shots with 2 on target. And I don't know if you're just and the thing is, sometimes the basic stats can be the best ones, because genuinely, if you can get into XA, like I've not seen a stat more flawed than XA at times. Like, for example, Busquets to Messi is in, and with the tap, which, the goal. I mean, just when he just tapped it to him and Messi
Mhm.
just ran in through behind, that's viewed as a high XA chance because of the situation it's in versus a half space cross, which is one of the most deadly weapons in football, being not as high as that. So I just think sometimes just looking at how much of the ball you have, how many shots you create, and how many shots on target you create can be just as good a metric as what XG the chances were, and how many shots on target, how many shots or BCM and BCC you created. But
Yeah,
um, I wanted to I wanted to ask you as well, because this is something that's
sure.
been bugging me. Um, I just think that there's a massive focus on um, the aesthetics of how we looked on the pitch, rather than the functionality of the movements that we were creating and the angles we were creating and the chances we were creating. I feel like,
Mhm.
for example, the Havertz stuff I've been seeing has been a lot of like, it's been a lot of like, okay, he's not doing, what's he doing? He's just standing around. He's just not doing much. He's just there. Um,
Yeah.
when you look at, like, I don't mean to be like overly pedantic, but the main criticism we had when the Havertz signing was what's going to allow out of possession, and he was great out of possession yesterday. I felt that he was really good out of possession, and as a midfielder, that's what we were worried about. And we had Thomas and Rice on the pitch, and and he still looked great out of possession. Because
Mhm.
I think the other dynamic was, okay, so if he has Thomas and Rice, he's not going to be relied on much out of possession, and he still was great. The way he was covering in the press, making sure to follow up, making sure to block lanes and really try to disrupt their build up as well. So, what did you make of the aesthetics argument, and what did you make of Havertz's role in and out of possession yesterday?
I I don't really give a shit about the
Yeah,
aesthetics, to be quite honest. I get worried for Havertz because he does have something of like a languid style to him,
yeah,
very similar to what we had with Uzil. But I think he was fine. I don't think he was amazing, but I think he was like a solid 6.5, 7 out of 10 yesterday.
mm,
And off the ball, I think he was opening things up for Martinelli and for Rice. There were a couple times where Rice would get pretty far, excuse me, into the opposing penalty box, and you'd kind of go back and watch that. And it's because Havertz dragged a man with him,
yeah,
and then Rice was able to get in there, and or Martinelli was able to get in there, and he won his duels. I think he won the ball a couple times, and he just seems to know where to pick up space,
Hmm.
which I think is a really underrated trait in players. That was something that was one of the first things that made me fall in love with Odegaard, really, which was how Odegaard always like found a way to pop up in pockets between the lines. So I think Havertz is pretty decent at doing that as well. But yeah, I mean, I saw a bunch of people complaining and saying, I don't understand why Havertz is still on the pitch. I don't know what he's doing. And yeah, I worry for him because I'm positive that a big reason why Arteta signed him is what he can do off the ball and how he
Hmm.
can open up things, especially when we're playing against these low blocks. And there's going to be days where those are his biggest contributions to the team, and not necessarily a goal or an assist, or a BCC or whatever. It's going to be what he does for the people around him and how he makes them look good. So I worry that people are going to just scapegoat him when things are going wrong and kind of find ways to blame him. There's always the unfortunate thing about being an Arsenal fan is that there's always a scapegoat on the
Yeah.
team, and I think Havertz is kind of a is prime prey for that this time around. But yeah, I think the aesthetics argument is bullshit. Even when he was on the ball, um, I guess there's the one thing I had an issue with, and you've mentioned this as well, is his passes are a little casual,
Yeah.
little casual.
It's not just casual. I think that the pace on them, he's underhitting them. He needs to
Yeah,
just put a bit more oomph on them, a bit more venom, and that will
yeah,
come when it. I think when you understand the pace of your teammates and you understand how they run, the directions they run, the runs they're making, I think that will come. And I think Mikel put an emphasis on that because even when Erdegaard came, there were times when he would hold on to the ball too much, and he
yeah,
wouldn't understand when to release at times. And there are still times when I feel like just let it go, just let the ball go. It's okay, just let it happen. It's You have teammates around you to help. Just
yeah,
I like the little stuff, but it's go. But the same thing will happen with Havertz. I feel. I
yeah,
think that he'll understand that he needs to put a bit more like just pace on his passes. And the language style doesn't bother me as long as it's functional. Like as
sure,
long as he's
yeah,
not I don't like him at the 9. I still think, and I will say this for the entire season, just like I said last season and the season before about Rice, I genuinely think that the next evolution of this team, the reason why we bought Havertz is for Victor Osimhen. I will say that till he's signed for someone else. I don't really care. Havertz for me needs someone to work off. He needs
yeah,
runs. He needs to make runs off a big guy. And since I've been on Twitter, I've always been the advert. That's been my guy. I've not just Osimhen, but like the big target man striker. I've always wanted that for us. I think that that's something that this team needs and will have eventually. I think that that's the main acquisition for next year, and Havertz kind of just solidifies that for me because he needs that someone just to have that backboard to run around basically and create and find the space that the big man will attract to him. So um, yeah, I think that will come, and I think that's what we're preparing for. I liked that we were allowing him to be a bit more central at times and allowing him to be a bit more free.
yeah,
Um, but that was the main thing for me. I think that we are setting this team up to have a 6-lane attack, 3 on one side, 3 on the other side, and
yeah,
have the 2 8s. So if you imagine a 6-man across the front line, um,
hmm,
the middle pocket of each 3. So you'll have winger, midfielder, striker, a midfielder, winger. The 2 midfielders are free to kind of interchange and go wherever the hell they want. So I think Erdegaard coming left, I think will be a great evolution as the season goes along because I feel like the angles suit Kai on the right a lot more than they do on the left, and that's just my thing. But I think when they have the freedom to be able to switch and create the overloads on the left, because I feel like we were trying to create that 5v4 overload on the left with Thomas stepping in to the left, and that's why it kind of looked a bit clunky. I know a lot of people were complaining about the left hand side because I feel like
Mhm.
it's new. I think that they were trying to understand the dynamics and the timings of the runs going from. So if you imagine the five at the back, the central centre back, the wide centre back, and the full back, the space in behind the the middle of those three, I think they were trying to exploit going in behind that. And I wish I could have had a diagram to point that. I had to try and visualize that. But if you try and imagine three men across one side of the pitch and the space in behind the middle of those three and the basically the central of those three, trying to exploit that space and that channel. And I think that was identified by Mikel, and he does this with three at the backs all the time. Either it be the wide centre back and the full back, or the wide centre back and the central centre back. He tries to
Mhm.
maneuver to try and exploit that space in behind, and Marcelli especially making it runs from touchline inside to try and exploit kind of that space between the 6 yard box and the 18-yard box on the left hand side, trying to he could like say attack the byline and try to take on the man in with using that space. Think because the centre back thinks there's not enough space for him to get through, and he kind of just wriggles his way through and gets into the box. So that's something that we will try to exploit a lot more. And I think especially against five at the back teams, trying to get into that space in behind that line, because I think the spacing and that because they get too comfortable because they have the numerical advantage, you can use timing to actually exploit the space in behind that. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if that's something that because you mentioned earlier about low blocks and how we need to attack against low blocks. I think that's going to be something we see a lot, especially against five at the back teams. So um, yeah, I think there's a lot of things that we can talk about, but the main thing is there's going to be a lot of fluidity in the front line. I think that's going to be the main issue going forward. The way we break teams down is to try and switch personnel, switch roles, switch the ways we look at give teams different looks, basically.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of the front line, we should probably touch on the guy who led it, Eddie
Yeah.
Nketiah. And he got our first goal of the season. It
Hmm.
was a really nice goal, although Havertz was right there for him to pass to.
Oh, don't get me started. Oh.
Did you know that Nketiah had 13 backwards passes and only one
I,
forward
I,
pass?
I look. I'm just going to say this, and I'm going to say this once. I'm going to say this very nicely. Um,
Yeah,
Screenshots, right, is good for visualization if you use multiple things, so you can see the progression of things and maybe what looks players get. So if
yeah,
you use four or five or maybe six screenshots um, in a row, and you see the progression of how things happen. You can see what happens and how maybe a player sees. But you look at one screenshot and then you say, okay, um, the player is open here, but the guy scored, so I don't understand why he took the shot. I'm sorry, I can't deal with that. I can't do that. I don't understand. The player scored.
yeah.
That's the main thing. I don't really care about whether a player was open. The action work, his head was down because he was focusing on the shots he was creating, not because he was looking for a pass. He's a striker. He's
Yeah.
not a 10. He's not an 8. He's not looking for the free man. He's looking to score. Yeah, I just I'm at a loss for it. I don't
You know,
understand.
I used to be one of those people who, would see screenshots and be like, "Oh, we should have done this," and yada yada. And then I played football again for the first time in a few years. And, I normally like to play forward. So I would get the ball in the penalty box and I'd have four people collapsing on me and I'd be like, shit, I'm gonna take the shot. And you think about that and you're just like, wow, being on the field in real time is way different than, a Sky Sports or an NBC camera angle of the whole pitch that you froze in time for a single millisecond. I think people forget that the game looks a lot different down there than it does up here. But Nketiah is still a high level player, good enough where he probably knew that Havertz was there, and he knew that he had Odegaard and Party behind him at that moment to lay the ball off to. But at the same time, like you said, he's a striker. He had 7 people bearing down on him. He had a shot of goal, or sorry, a sight of goal. He was going to take the shot, and he took the shot, and it went in. And I don't really think there's much more to talk about with regard to that. I just feel like in general, I haven't been Eddie's biggest fan in in seasons past
Hmm.
and even up until recently. I never thought he was a bad player. I think just stylistically, much like how people have kind of already made their mind up about Havertz, I think stylistically, I kind of always would look at him and be like, I'm not sure he's a long term Arsenal player. But I think the fact of the matter is, people have been trying to do that same thing, and he just keeps performing. And Kedia keeps on starting. Well, not keeps on starting, but Kedia keeps on, getting minutes and coming out on the pitch for us and representing. I think this is his 14th goal in 16
Yeah.
starts. He keeps getting it done, and his hold up play has improved. His link up has improved. He runs the channels really well. I think he opens space up for his teammates. He demands that center backs follow him. He demands attention, and that opens things up for the other teammates on the pitch. So, while he may be boring, a Hale End player with not a super exciting name who just kind of is there because he worked hard and he grafted, um, while he's not exactly exotic, I think at this point in time he's done his job and he's performed and he's met the expectations set by him or set for him by Mikel
Mm.
Arteta. But I wanted to get your thoughts on Nketiah's performance, kind of what his role in this squad probably will be this season,
Mm.
and yeah.
Look, Nketiah is someone that needs minutes. I think we've all said it. I think that if you give him minutes, you give him continuity, he will perform. Um, I'm sorry, I just can't, I need to read this. I'm just going to read a tweet here, and I'm not going to
Sure.
say who it's by. I'm not going to say why it's relevant, but it just goes back to what I was saying regarding the stats stuff. And I'm reading this verbatim, so don't just uh, assume that I'm paraphrasing here. This is word for word.
Okay.
Even if the pass only comes off 25% of the time, that's basically a 70% type tap in for Kai. So it's 19% to score versus the 8% chance from shooting in a congested spot there. So I'm looking at that tweet. And I'm just thinking, so you're thinking that Eddie's going, you know what? If I just if I just pass it there, that is a 19% shot that we'll get a goal. Versus if you know what? If I shoot here, it's only an 8% chance. So I don't know. I don't know if I can take the shot. I don't know if I can take the shot. I don't know if, oh wait, I'm just gonna take the shot. Do you think that was the thought process there? That was not the thought process there. The thought process there is the goal is there. I am a striker. I am going to score. Um, I don't understand what the narrative is here, and I just think that with Eddie, it's funny because Eddie Nketiah kind of sums up pretty much everything we've talked about in this podcast: the stats stuff, the aesthetics versus performance stuff, trusting the squad more. I think Eddie is just a perfect example of literally everything we've talked about today.
Yeah.
If Eddie's trusted, if Eddie has minutes, Eddie will score a lot of goals. And you know what? That may come up, and he may leave in this window because he needs minutes. He deserves minutes. And look, I'm not here to bash on anyone or try to uh, call out people or whatever. But when you think about what that tweet says, it just shows what football has become in terms of we're not looking at what's actually happening on the pitch. We're looking at what we want to what we want to put up. We're putting our own narratives and our own biases on what's not happening on the pitch rather than actually looking at what is happening on the pitch. So
Yeah.
I just really think that there's a lot to really dissect here and a lot to really think about going forward because we as a club need to realize that we have a squad. Um, that's the main thing, and that's what we have to look at going forward. We can't have just 11 players. And if Eddie's given a shot and he's given a chance, he will score goals. It's who he's been his entire career. Go back to Leeds loan. Leeds loved him because he was a poacher. He would score goals. He scored goals for us last season. He scored goals for us he almost got us top 4. Like,
Hmm.
if you give him a run of games, he'll be fine. So I just think that there's a lot going on in terms of what we think Eddie is versus what Mikel and the club see Eddie as. And he is our second striker. He is the striker that if Jesus is available, he's there. And the thing is, even if Eddie doesn't perform for 60 minutes, he doesn't grab a goal in 65 minutes, you bring on Trossard. Havertz can go up top. You can move even Martinelli up top because we do have that 2 striker system where they switch roles. Eddie can go out wide and Martinelli come into the striker role. We have that fluidity on the pitch at times. So we have other options. And if you have Eddie leading the line and he doesn't score, he doesn't score. It doesn't happen every game. Well, he's not Haaland. He's not even Haaland doesn't score every game. So just let him live. Let him try and see what happens this season. And if it does mean that he wants more minutes at a different club at the end of the season, good luck to him. I think he's a very good Premier League level striker. And if you look at the nines in the league right now, it's Haaland. I'll say Isak. It's not a lot. Kane's gone. There's not a lot of nines in this league. And I'm telling you, if Eddie Nketiah is available, a lot of Premier League clubs will want him. A lot of Premier League clubs will want him. Crystal Palace, West Ham, Brentford, to try and compensate for Tony being out, or even Brighton could have him. I mean, I know they have Ferguson, but he's still a baby. So there's a lot of clubs that would want him. And I think that the funny thing is if and when he does go, he's going to start 5 games and he's going to add a different club, and everyone's going to be like, "Why did we sell him? Why did we sell him? You were the reason why we sold him, because you didn't back him, and no one backed him." So it's funny to me, and I just hope that everyone kind of just takes a breath and realize what we have on our hands here, because he is a good player. He's a very good player, and he's going to get minutes now. Jesus is out for a while. It's just that when he has these kind of stop starts, kind of like he'll play a game, not play for like 5 games, play for like a 30-minute cameo, then he kind of it does hurt his confidence a bit. But you give him a couple of games. You saw what happened in January with the United game, Spurs, those games in January, the Brighton game. He did very well.
Kept us in the top. He kept us in top spot.
Yep. No worries. So I'm not worried about Eddie. I just hope that people realize what we have on our hands. And I think that he's a very serviceable second striker option. Oh, also he doesn't pass there. He doesn't pass there. There's no way he passes there. And if you think he passes there, you can I don't know what to do there.
Well, I think on that point, I want to say this was from a recent, it was either Balogun or Ben White interview, but basically, and I might have that completely wrong, but I know it's a recent interview with one of the players, and they were talking about how Arteta always encourages them to take the risk in the final third. And basically, I'm paraphrasing here, but basically what they said is that Arteta had kind of told them, even if there is a small chance that what you are doing in the final third comes off, take the risk. If you lose the ball, you lose the ball. We'll get it back and we'll try again, right?
Yep.
But like if there is a high payoff, right, aka if there is a goal or an assist in what you are trying to do, and you're worried that there's a strong chance this can come off, try it, see what happens. And so Nketiah's this is almost instruction, really, that Nketiah did, because he again got the ball, had half of the Forest team collapsing in on him, saw the goal and backed himself and was like, I'm going to try the shot. And it went in, and that's it. And he'd probably do that the other 9 times out of 10 as well. So I think Eddie's definitely one of those players who people always try to nitpick. And I do agree with your take that, kind of blindly allowing the numbers and the stats to be the entire picture of what you see on the pitch has kind of negatively impacted the way that some people see the game. Right? We have people sitting out here talking about, oh, it was a 70% chance if he passed it to Havertz for a goal that has already happened and looked good and came and went, and you know are
Somewhat,
is
I quoted the
yeah.
tweet, and I think the best response was, "Wait, I'm confused. Someone's negatively analyzing a goal."
Yeah.
I think that was the best response I got. I think that it's very it's just that simple. Why do you care?
Yeah, and it definitely comes from that kind of attitude of looking at the underlying numbers and trying to predict when things are about to, stop going our way, right? I think back to like the Emery run where I
Mm.
think it was like 22 games unbeaten, and all the stats people are coming out and saying our XG is awful. We're not controlling games. This is not going to last forever. And they're right. And I think it stems from similar attitude, but at some point, I think you just kind of need to take a step back and relax
But it
and let
goes
it
back to
go.
what you were saying in earlier in our conversation about XG being a more a long-term indicator rather than one game. I think for one game, if something happens and you don't, if something happens with the XG and it doesn't go your way, look at the game, see the bigger picture of that game and see what happened. Did we deserve to lose on XG? Did we deserve to win on XG? What were the chances that went in? Were we lucky? Or were we, were we deservingly, did we get away with one? So um I just think that's the way I look at it. Because the thing is, if we had lost that game on XG and it was genuinely like they were peltering us, I wouldn't be like, oh well, it's just a finishing metric, etc., etc. If that It is just a finishing metric, but it also dictates you can't finish chances you don't create.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. So it wasn't. That's why you can't look at it in an individual fashion, because if you're not creating chances, that's a different metric than creating low XG chances, but creating a lot of them or creating enough of them, but you just have the finishes to make them go in. And that's how you overperform XG. It depends on how you overperform XG as well as how much you overperform XG. And I think I was talking to someone earlier, and they were saying I don't like the word tactical advantage because it's too vague, and that's true because a tactical advantage can either be qualitative or quantitative, so a numerical superiority or the quality of players on the pitch provide you that superiority. Just saying it's a tactical advantage doesn't actually tell you anything; it just tells you what happened. So it's the same thing with XG. It doesn't tell you how things happen; it tells you what happened, and that's what any stat does. It's when you combine stats and combine it with the actual how can I put it, with the actual what happened on the pitch, the actual that's how you get a generic picture or a better picture of what actually happened and why things happened.
Yep. Yep. 100%. And we'll turn to the performance of Declan Rice,
Yep.
because I think this was his league debut, and I guess just what did you make of his performance? Because I think his was a performance that kind of goes under the radar in that first viewing, that first
Yeah.
emotional Forrester battering us kind of viewing. Yeah. So what did you make overall of his debut and how he did?
I mean, Declan is uh, it's still like I've wanted him at the club for so long. It's still weird seeing him in the shirt. I know it's been a couple of games, but it still feels weird. Um, what actually happened on the pitch with him? I feel like there are ways he does need to improve. I'm not gonna lie and just be like, oh, he's amazing and everything. I think same with Havertz. He needs to be. I think he's still getting used to how aggressive he can be, and I feel like he thinks that he needs to do everything because that's how what he's always had to do. He's always had to do everything. He's always had to be the progression. He's always had to be the chance creator. He's always had to be sometimes a finisher as well. He doesn't need to do all that, and I think he's still getting used to it. I think that he's still. Did we mention the white cutback earlier? Uh, he was right in front of me. He was his hands were on his head. And he was like, that should have been me on the penalty spot, finishing it on my debut. But like genuinely, I'm very happy that he's here, and I think that he did fine, especially off the ball. Um, there was a tweet from a Chelsea fan I saw after the game saying, if you try and transition against Arsenal, you win the ball back and you're met with 5 6-foot monsters that are trying to chase you down. It's a long day for you. Yes, we conceded on our transition, but genuinely, I just don't see a lot of teams, unless it gets to a point where like a one-off or these kinds of things, like the Elanga run, very good run. Someone that I've loved as well in Nancy Elanga. I think that he's going to have a great year for Forest. He had a great run, and obviously Ben White. I think he does need to track that run of Awoniyi a bit better. He lets him get in front of him and finish as well. So, in terms of Declan himself, great off the ball. A little bit more brave on the ball. I think he's still working out some positioning issues. I think that he's going to be someone that will get a couple of goals as well, hopefully. I think that sort of Ben White cutback is going to be there for him quite a few times. And you saw, I think you mentioned as well, 3 shots on target. He's going to be getting shots. He's going to try and get a couple of goals as well. So a lot to be excited about. But there are some issues, and there were always going to be issues. And by the time this season ends, we're gonna look back and think, all right, this is going to be a player that's going to be here for a long time and do very well for us. So I'm more than happy to see him on the pitch. I'm more than happy to talk about that performance. But yeah, some issues, but we'll get through it. Nothing to worry about.
Yeah, I really liked the aggression going forward. I think that was something I was unsure about in terms of what we were going to see from him. Um, I was wondering if he was just going to end up kind of being a guy who sat in the middle of the park for us for 90 minutes. But yeah, I think having him with Party, especially, whether it's Party at the 6 and him at the 8, or Party playing right back and kind of tucking in and allowing Rice to make his way forward, I think that's allowed him to figure into our attacks. And, like you said, he could have gotten on the end of the Ben White cross and work out that way. He got 3 shots on target, which I think a couple of them he was unlucky not to put in the back of the net. There's that one that he didn't hit correctly. If he gotten a little bit better contact on that, I think we're talking about a 3-1 at least.
Yeah.
And off the ball, I thought, well, actually, one other thing, I think he combined pretty decently with Martinelli. I think there's a little bit to work on there, but I think they're at least starting to create something of an understanding. They've been, kind of combining on that left flank a couple matches now. Off the ball, I think he was great.
Yeah.
There were a lot of situations where Forest could have transitioned on us. They won the ball back in their third or in the middle third, and Rice most of the time was there to snap the ball back up and just kind of get it going back up the pitch in the right direction. And there was that one Forest attack where I think Saliba lost out, or he got beaten to the ball.
Yeah.
And oh, you know what it was? Saliba was in our penalty box, and he missed his challenge, and someone got past him, and then Rice showed up, picked the ball up, and basically knocked it off the player for a goal kick. So, I think he was basically everywhere as much as he could have been, and having a guy like that to to prevent those transitions, to make us more secure, and to just cover the amount of ground that he does. He was playing as a true box to box, and I think the exciting thing is this is him still adjusting to the team, and like you said, still thinking he needs to do everything. Not 100% understanding his role just yet, still developing those relationships in the team. So, it's really exciting because I think he's just going to get better and better. And I think I think we're looking at a guy who has a very good chance of becoming a true talisman for us. So it's really exciting.
Yeah. One thing I did want to mention, one player, because we haven't mentioned yet much, is Martinelli. I just
Yes.
think that I'm not. he was not just his trickery and the way he got through players and the way he was trying to take on players, but the off the ball work. He was a left wing back at time. Like genuinely, the recovery runs he was making and the way he was just bullying people off the ball, barging into players and getting the ball back and retrieving the ball. I was so proud of to see him. Like I've always thought that he's going to be someone just for I would say the next like even in the Emery days, I would say the next 5 years, 10 years, I thought this is going to be the guy that will really propel us with Saka to being not just title challengers but title winners, hopefully. And I'm just so proud to see how he's progressed and how he's doing. And even if I know people are going to say it, even if his assist he meant to just do a roulette, I know he meant to do a roulette, but it still looked amazing. I don't care what anyone says. Um, I know he didn't mean it. He didn't mean it. No one knows. Everyone knows he didn't mean it, but it still looked amazing. So I do not care. It was a great game for him.
And with the roulette, I think it's just one of those things where if you keep trying, eventually something like that's going to come off. So he made his own luck there. That's how I prefer to look at it. But yeah, the off the ball work really caught my eye as well. There are several moments where either he would lose the ball or the one I'm thinking of in particular right now, I think it was Rice or Havertz tried to get the ball to him and it got picked off just as he was about to put his foot on it.
Yeah.
And there's this moment where he puts his head down and he's like, okay, here we go. And he just takes off back down the pitch. Yeah. And races down, wins the ball back and, gets things moving again. And also I really did enjoy that he was giving back a little bit to Serge Aurier.
Yep.
I think Aurier was kind of trying to put himself about a little bit, especially when they were down. And
there was a moment. I don't know if you remember. There was a moment where I think he gave away a foul and in the just like very close to their box, and he barged someone down. I think it was Aurier, and Aurier just got pissed. He was like, "Just your cock," I think he shoved him back, and you could just tell that like Aurier was just fed up. I think he was just fed up of dealing with him all day. And you could just say, you've won that battle. There's just no way. And Mikel talks about all the time, win your 1v1s. If you can win your personal duel against your direct opponent, if you do that more often than not on a pitch, then you're more likely to win a football match than you are to lose it. So he did very well. I just thought he deserved a mention. I think for me, he was. I know a lot of people have Saka because of the goal, and it's an amazing goal. But I think for me, I think Martinelli has to be my man of the match. I think the way he managed to just marshal that left hand side was incredible, and I think that it's a great sign for us going forward.
Yeah. My favorite part of that moment with Aurier was he knocked him over, and Aurier's starting to get up, and then Martinelli just shoves him to kind of say stay down, and that's when Aurier got upset. Okay, last thing we'll talk about before we get out of here. Unfortunately, Timber, went down and managed to leave the field under his own power. But there's been speculation as to whether it's a knee injury or a knock or a calf issue. And I mean, I know you do have experience in the medical field, but I don't.
With sports injury stuff, I genuinely like from what I saw and what I saw on replay, it kind of looks like it could either be a calf strain or maybe a posterior ligament, a PCL, like just a strain. There was no twisting, which is a good thing because then that would indicate maybe a snap. Or as some would put it, a break. I don't understand. I don't understand how you break a ligament, you tear a ligament. It just annoys me. The main thing is there was no twisting, and if there was twisting, and the way he kind of just stopped, it felt like it was just sort of like a I don't know how to put it, just sort of like an aggravation of an injury that was probably having a discomfort at halftime. If that was the case, they would have done checks to see whether he was fit to come back on the pitch. They probably would have tested the knee movement, the knee This is the knee range of motion and if there was pain or anything like this, and they would have tested to see if there was a snap or anything like this. So that's good news, because that means that it was probably if there was a knee ligament issue, it would probably be a strain, maybe at worst a grade 2, which is 4 to 6 weeks. But if it's a grade 1 or a heavy grade 1, maybe end of August we see him back. And the good thing is I mean, it's not a good thing, but the good thing from a squad perspective is Zinchenko looks like he's going to come back as well, and we have Kivio, and we can do a lot of different things. So,
and Tomiyasu, although he's
Tomiyasu
not the best option.
That's why I meant by a lot of different things we can do Tomiyasu, but I don't really prefer him there. I just think that on a Timber note, this guy is quite clearly, I think, the off foot. How could I put this? The putting the wrong foot as a fullback on the opposite side is better for him, because I feel like if he gets too wide on the right, sometimes he can lose the channel and get beat. So finding that sort of like the invert from the other side, I think it allows him to cover the channel better, and it gives him a better look at a better look defensively. So, and he's obviously a demon in possession as well. So that's never been the issue. The issue is defensively, can you find a way to really cope in those wide areas? Because if you look at all of our fullbacks, apart from the one that looks like leaving in Tierney, they look like if you show them into the channel, they can get beat, and they need the centre back to come and cover. So having him on the wrong foot allows him to cover the channel better and force people out wide, which is what you want. You want them further away from the goal, not coming inside.
Yeah, I think Timber's definitely a guy who we're probably going to see like against Liverpool when we're up against Mohamed Salah, and other situations in which we're coming up against really high level left-footed right wingers. I think, like you said, I think Timber's going to be a good option there. But it was sad to see him go down, because I think he was probably one of the stars of preseason along with Trossard. And just it feels like he had some momentum, and he's starting to really make a case for himself to be a regular part of Arteta's starting 11s moving forward. So kind of just to end, how big of a blow do you think it is, considering, or I guess assuming Zinchenko will be back for next week?
Look, it's a blow, because he's someone that clearly is, I think, would be in contention to start. But with Zinchenko coming back, we can handle it. We can manage it. So he's not someone that's going to be needed immediately. Like, we're not stressing over the next. I don't even. You know what? The strange. I don't know our fixture list. Like if you go into like last season, like I knew our fixture list like that. I genuinely have. I can go on BBC Sport right now. I need to check what our fixture list is, because it's annoying me. I used to have a background of our fixture list on my laptop, and I don't have it anymore. I need to make a new one, because it's actually annoying me. So
I have it saved under favorite. Okay, this is probably incorrect, but I think we're playing Crystal Palace next Monday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that I've just checked myself. Palace on Monday.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're away at Palace, and that's always going to be fun, especially at the beginning of the season. I miss that pink kit. I wish we could have that pink kit back, but it'll be a fun game. I think that'll be I think that'll be a game Zinchenko will be fine for. So yeah. It's annoying, because I think that he's obviously in contention to start pretty much every game now, because he was really integrating himself well. He was one of the standouts, as you said, in preseason. But if he's injured, he's injured, and you just deal with it.
Yeah.
So that it is what it is, and we have the players to cope, and that's what we were mentioning earlier about needing to rotate and find different options. And that's something we're going to see throughout the season. I think this season is going to be a major thing where we're looking to develop certain plans, which will look. The Community Shield is a perfect example. We were 1-0 down Mikel just goes, "I'm gonna go in my Wenger bag, throw in every 10 I have on the bench, and try and find a goal from somewhere." And I think that will be something that we try to use as much as we can this season, because I think
Yeah.
Mikel's fed up of. If you look back at his tenure here, we're looking at Villarreal. That game we lost because of depth. Xhaka at left back. It was a mess. And then the Crystal Palace, Southampton, Brighton trio the season later, and then this
Yeah.
season with the Southampton West Ham games. Like it's a trend. We need to stop capitulating in April. We need to get through that month and then get to the point where we're actually where we want to be. So I think this year, I think something's clicked in him, because I don't think I've ever seen him go, "I'm going to drop Gabriel for no reason whatsoever." Because that's something
Yeah.
Pep would do. Pep would do that. Pep would drop Diaz for no reason and just go Ake and Akanji or whatever, and just go, "Okay, that's my 11. Just go out and win the game. I don't really give a shit what you do."
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. It is, again, it's encouraging that he's doing that, because clearly it's a strategy that worked for Pep. And it is a strategy that, like you said, keeps the squad fresh, so
Mm.
that we're not having big injuries in, late March and in April that really derail any title challenge that we might have at that point. So, yeah, I feel the same way about the Timber injury. It's a loss for sure, but more a loss in terms of I was really enjoying watching him on the pitch and seeing him, do what he does, and contribute in possession, and also be, pretty reliable defensively as well. But yeah, I think if Zinchenko's back, we roll Zinchenko, no problem. Otherwise, we go with, I guess, Kivior,
Yeah.
in a pinch, Tomiyasu or Tierney. So it's really nice to have the options there. So we'll see what we would do against
Yep.
Crystal Palace. Looking forward to that game. Do you think you're going to be able to make it out there?
To Palace away, if I can get a ticket, but it's gonna be chaos.
I'm sure.
We'll see. We'll see. I'll try,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I've got friends there, so hopefully, even if I go in the home end, I'll try and just nick something. So
yeah,
we'll see.
yeah. Well, yeah. If you're able to go, I'm excited for you. Can't wait to watch it.
Yep.
I will be in Boston, I think. So
Oh,
I'm gonna have to figure out how I'm watching that game. But yeah, Curran, thank you so much for coming
no
on.
problem, man.
It was great to chat about the game with you, and talk about some pretty horrific takes, but also just analyze the game as a whole. It was a lot of fun. Hope to have you
Yep.
back on soon, my friend.
Of course, yeah.
And next time we'll have Sash on. So you
Hopefully,
can
if Apple doesn't hate him, we'll get him on. But yeah.
Apple, he despises Apple right now. But yeah, we'll definitely have you on, and do a pod, the three of us. So um, for those of you listening, watching, if you're watching, hello.
Hello.
For those of you listening or watching, you can follow Curran at Curran BOP. That's B as in ball, O as in over, P as in passion,
Nicely
which
done.
is Bolivar. Yep, Bolivar
Yeah,
Passion.
there you
That is where you can find
go.
Curran. They've got a YouTube channel. They've got a really great show. I really do enjoy watching you guys. And it's you and George. Is there
Chris
um
as well as a third one.
and
Yeah.
Chris? Yeah,
Yeah.
you and George and Chris, and yeah, really really great stuff from the three of you. And also you can see Curran having great takes on Twitter, especially when people say stupid things about stats. Um, on Twitter, like I said, at Curran BOP. You can follow me at Shamsdale. You can follow Sash, even though he's not here, at LT Arsenal. You can follow the pod at This Week Arsenal. Follow us on YouTube. It's the LT Arsenal channel, like I said before. Going to rebrand that. Check us out there. Like the video, subscribe, leave a comment, hit the bell for notifications. We've got some other content coming out. Hopefully, we'll have a video on Ramsdale and Raya coming out this week. But until then, stay safe, stay happy, stay lovely, and we will see you hopefully after a win away to Crystal Palace. So until then, take care. Talk to you soon.